Hello and welcome to Mr. Marr's 3-Minute History, quick summaries about a range of different history topics. Today we're going back to the time of the First World War and we're looking at the Battle of the Somme, arguably the most famous battle of the war and one of the most famous battles of the 20th century. Let's look at some basic facts. One of the reasons the Battle of the Somme is so important is that it was the largest conflict which took place during the war. It began on the 1st of July 1916 and would last for 141 days until the 18th of November 1916. It was named after the River Somme area in which it was fought, and it saw troops from France and Britain fight against the German army. It's important to understand what happened before the battle to understand why it was such a significant event. The Chantilly Conference in December 1915 had set much of the plans for 1916 that would be undertaken by Britain, Russia, France and Italy. They each agreed that there would be a series of attacks on German forces which would attempt to ultimately defeat the Germans. Shortly after this conference, the Germans launched an offensive against the French at Verdun. This was a major problem. Not only did it distract France in terms of having to fight this, but France ultimately was limited in the amount of support it could give at the Battle of the Somme, placing more emphasis and more need on the British to fight. However, there was also a further need to fight at the Somme for the simple reason of trying to give France some respite from the Verdun advances. The Battle of the Somme itself is really something of a misleading title. The reality is that fought across the many months it was, there was a variety of different phases and smaller battles which made up the larger Battle of the Somme. However, to give an idea of the bloody scale of the war, on the first day of the battle, on July the 1st, 1916, Britain had 57,000 casualties as a result of the difficulty of trying to advance against the German machine guns. Over the course of the months, the reality was that both sides saw negatives and positives. At times they saw victories and small advances, and at other times they saw themselves being pushed back. Possibly the most significant battle from a British perspective, and certainly the third and final British offensive, was that which took place at Flers-sur-Salette. This is most famous because it was the first time in war that tanks were used as part of a battle. The battle itself came to an end by 18th of November 1916. It had been an utterly terrible event. 141 days of fighting had seen 3 million soldiers involved in the battle and had resulted in 1 million being killed or injured across the various sides. Ultimately, the benefits that could be gained are debatable. On the one hand, Britain did advance. However, it was only 7 miles. And given the number of soldiers that were lost, there was huge arguments about whether the tactics were worthwhile. Other historians, however, counter that in fact the battle was very important for Britain. The German army lost much of its strength, and it forced a significant retreat to behind the area that was known as the Hindenburg Line. Many German soldiers believed that their defeat in the war ultimately stemmed from their defeat at the Somme.